And I love this picture of the beach. I know last week on the second day of Rosh Hashanah, you had a Rosh Hashanah service at the ocean at the beach. This is what I pictured it was like in my mind when I thought about it. So I hope it was that nice, if not nicer. Okay, so next slide, please. So Shana Tova, will you say it with me? Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Happy New Year. Bruchim habaim b'shem Adonai. We welcome you in the name of the One. So we're going to go on a little journey together to see the road here. And it's going to be a journey for learn more about Yom Kippur and how it can be hopefully meaningful and hopefully a little fun for us today. So let's go to the next slide, please. So today is Yom Kippur. Now it's said it's the Day of Atonement, but I like it when we say it's the Day of At-One-ment. We just welcomed everybody, right, in the name of the One. And how do we today become at one with ourselves and with our family, with our friends, with the community? So just 10 days ago, we were here together and we welcomed in the new year by saying Shana Tova. We were blowing the shofar. And remember, the service was divided into 3 parts. We did tefillah, the prayer, tshuva, the turning or repenting, the turning around and going the other way, and tzedakah, what we can do for other people. And the Yom Kippur service, just like in the adult service, it's going to be built on the same ideas, just a little differences here and there. We want to promise to do better this year, to be kind and helpful, and to keep improving ourselves. Okay, next slide, please. So today we focus on something different than we did last week for Rosh Hashanah. Today we consider or think about how sometimes other people feel when they're hurt. And we try and develop, this is a big word, empathy for others. Empathy is when you are able to understand and see the other person's perspective. And when you can share the feelings of another. Maybe someone's going through a difficult time. You're not, but you know they are, and you can feel that on some level, and you can be there and help them and support them. When you can see the other as yourself, it's a very important skill, not an easy one. A lot of adults also struggle with this. So sometimes it's not easy to do, but we can all get better at developing our feelings of empathy for others. Next slide, please. So I'm going to sing this song, and I want you to tell me, what word do you think means tent or tents? Do you see the picture in the desert, Matovu? And there's pictures of tents there. So the English translates it as places, but actually the Hebrew says your tents, the tents of Yaakov. Matovu, ohalecha Yaakov, Mishkenotecha Yisrael. How wonderful are the places where the people Israel make contact with God. Can anybody guess which word means tent? Or your tents? It's ohel. Can you say it for me? Ohel. And ohalecha are your tents. I love the idea as Sukkot's coming around the next few, starting tomorrow, right? I love the idea of dwelling in tents. If any of you ever wanted to live in a tent, think it'd be fun for a while? I kind of think it might be. Let's go to the next slide. There's a beautiful picture of like a mystical interpretation of the people of Israel living in the tents. So think about who you're here with today, and who are you thinking about that maybe it's not here, but you wish they were. Maybe they live in another city, or maybe they've passed. And where do you make contact with God? Where are your tents of holiness? Or where is it that you feel connected to other people? Because when you feel connected to other people, you're also connecting to God. So the next slide, please. So last week we talked about tefillah, and I mentioned this picture here. This picture is like really powerful to me because it's an ambulance, and rather than the Red Cross in Israel, they have the Star of David. You can see it on the ambulance. And the man closest to the ambulance is doing his afternoon prayers. He's Jewish. And the man who's kneeling down with the prayer rug, he is Muslim, and he's doing his afternoon prayers. And there was an article in a magazine about these two who did their prayers together, and their partners. And they went around Tel Aviv helping people that needed help, a Jewish man and a Muslim man. I just think it's really beautiful. So tefillah, our prayer, is the way we talk to God and to ourselves. We can pray when we are happy, when we're amazed, grateful, thankful, or pleased. We have prayers we say when something special happens, like when we see a rainbow. There's actually a blessing for seeing a rainbow, or when you see lightning in the sky. It's really interesting. There's prayers for and blessings for so many things, or trees, or when we celebrate a holiday like today. Today is Yom Kippur. Go to the next slide. But yeah, so what are you happy about today? Is there anyone who would like to say one thing that you're happy about? Let me see if I can see everybody here. Does anybody say, I'm really happy about something? I can start off. So 3 weeks ago yesterday, I think I told you last time that we got a puppy, and I don't want to, and I think the puppy is housebroken. I think he's finally housebroken. It's been like 3 days with no accidents. It's been very nice. He's such a loving little thing, but I thought for a while he was never going to learn. But suddenly he went over to the door and he rang the little bell, and I was like, oh my, he gets it. So it makes me really happy. Anybody happy for anything in your life?
I used to have a back injury, and it healed recently, and I'm really thankful for that.
Wow, that's wonderful. Wow, wonderful. Thank you. Yeah, because if your back's hurting, it's hard to do anything, isn't it? Yeah. Excellent. I'm thankful that my daughter is going to come over tonight for Break the Fast. It's going to be very small, just the three of us, but it makes me very happy to think about her coming over. So it's very nice. Okay, well, think about that. You don't have to say it out loud. I'm sure you're thankful for a lot of things. So let's get ready to do some of the prayers together. On the next slide, there's some questions that we need to ask ourselves, and we can ask God. And if you were in the adult service this morning, these are the same questions, right? That adults ask themselves. But God, are you there? Are you awake? Are you prepared? Can you hear my voice? Can you really understand me? And the next slide are questions that we ask ourselves, like, am I awake, both physically and spiritually? And am I prepared? And I know that we are. So let's go to the next slide. In our first prayer, Yotzea Or, creator of light. So God creates light in the world. And it's not just, it is, of course, the sun, the moon, and the stars, but it's also the light of our own enlightenment, of our own knowledge. All of that, this prayer says, comes from God, the creator of all light. When we look around and see the world God has created for us, we feel thankful. Thank you, God, for giving us sight and light to see this beautiful world. So say this chatima, say this ending of the prayer with me. Baruch atah Adonai yotzea hameorot. And it's in the plural. So God just didn't, in English we say God created light, but it's hameorot, God created lights, right? I think that's really neat. The next slide, please. So ahava rabbah. So God loves us, not just loves us, but loves us with a great love. God loves us so much that he gave us the wonderful gift of the Torah and our family and our friends. And one way we can show our love is by doing what the Torah tells us to do. So the Torah teaches us that we are to love each other and take care of the world God has given us. Before we do the prayer, can anybody share with me maybe some way the last week or couple weeks you've taken care of the world that God has given us, maybe the environment, or maybe somehow you've shown and taken care of someone in your life, maybe a parent, a sibling, a friend at school? It may seem like a simple little thing, but even if you stop and pick up some trash and put it in the garbage, it's helping, right? It's helping make the world just a little bit better. So let's read this together. Baruch atah Adonai habocher ba'amo Yisrael ba'ahava. So the English translation isn't exactly right, because it says, blessed are you, Adonai, who's chosen the people, but you chose us ba'ahava, with love. It's always wonderful, of course, to be loved and to show love. So how do you show people in your life that you love them? What do you say or do? There's a lot of things. And sometimes the things that we say are the little things, are sometimes the really, really important things. So the next slide. The Shema and the Ve'ahavta. So God shows us love by giving us family and friends, and we are part of a very large and big family, the Jewish family. And we're also part of an even bigger family, since God is our parent and we are all part of the family of all mankind. So if you remember last time we talked about how it's custom to cover your eyes, and some people cover their eyes making the shin. We're going to see here in a little bit a picture of the shin, of like it's one of the names of God, Shaddai. So if you want, you can cover your eyes any way you want. You don't have to, or you could cover them by making the shin. It's kind of neat to make the shin. Shin Shaddai, one of the names of God. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Can anybody tell me which word means to listen or to hear? Anybody know which one means to listen or to hear?
Shema.
Yeah, thank you. And which word means one? It's the last one. Yeah, excellent. Good, thank you. Next slide, please. So the Ve'ahavta, you shall love. How should we love our God? How do we show our love? Well, I think we show our love to God when we show our love to other people that we meet, to our family, to our friends, maybe to someone that we've never even met, but they need our help. You know, sometimes, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but you may feel a little down, and you're just walking down the street and someone smiles at you and says hello. That little interaction there can lift your heart a little bit. So it's a lot of ways that you can show how you love God. But I think the easiest way, the best way, is when we love other people. So we should love Adonai, our God, say it with me, with all of our heart and with all of our souls and with all of our might. Next slide, please. So what does it mean to love God with all your soul, heart, and might? Can you think of other people we are to love? How do we show our love? And what does it mean to love your neighbor? But to love your neighbor as yourself, that's not easy. Can anyone share with me maybe an example of someone you've seen, or maybe something you've done? Could be a very little thing that could be very powerful. You've been able to show your love for God by doing something loving for someone else.
Sometimes people shovel the
Mhm.
sidewalk or the driveway or wake the lawn for their neighbor.
Yeah, that's a really nice thing to do, isn't it? Yeah. So our neighbor went apple picking a couple days ago, and she brought over 6 beautiful apples. And then my wife and I decided that we would make an apple crisp out of them and take her an apple crisp. So it was really fun, right? The whole cycle. And we feel connected when people do that. That's yeah, what a wonderful example. Helping someone with their, rake the leaves or shovel the snow. Excellent. Okay, next slide, please. So the Avinu Malkeinu prayer, as a part of God's worldwide family, we're able to ask God to help us make the world a better place. And the Avinu Malkeinu prayer is a prayer we say during the high holidays, asking God to help us to make the world a better place. So read together with me, okay? Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voices. Avinu Malkeinu, make an end to sickness, war, and disease. Avinu Malkenu, may this new year be a good one. Avinu Malkenu, fill our hands with blessings and help us to love ourselves, our family, and the world. So this prayer is really very, very, very beautiful and very deep, because it sounds like in English that we're asking God to do all these things, right? Asking God to put an end to sickness, war, and disease, asking God to make sure that we have a good year. But really, and the last verse kind of helps us see this, we're asking God to help us to do the things that are necessary to put an end to sickness, war, and disease, and to make the next year a good one. We're going to see at the end of the service, when we end with the prayer Aleinu, that it really means it's our responsibility, it's our duty. So what can we do this year? What's our part in making the world a better place, a safer place? The next slide, please. So do you see the picture here? It's the shin. Most of you might be too young, but when I was younger, I was a real Star Trek nut. I still love Star Trek. And any of you know who Spock is?
Yep.
Okay, good. So Spock, I read his biography, maybe 20 years or so ago, Leonard Nimoy. And the name of his biography is I Am Not Spock. It was pretty funny, but he grew up in a very traditional Orthodox Jewish community. And at the end of the service, all of the children would go up front, and the Kohanes, the priests, would make a double shin over the heads of the children and do the priestly benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you. And Spock, when he created the Spock character for the TV show and the movie, he says, I'm making the shin, and live long and prosper is my shortened version, of the priestly benediction. But one way parents show their love for their children, and you can show your love for people in your life, is by asking God to bless them. So if you're a parent, perhaps you want to put the shin on the head or the shoulder of your parent. If you're a child, maybe you want to put the shin on the shoulder or the head of your parent or of a sibling. And we're going to bless each other. It's a special Yom Kippur blessing. It comes from our tradition. And you know this because we do this blessing often in our normal Shabbat services. So, Yaverechecha Adonai ve'yishmerecha. May God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha ve'yichunecha. May God watch over you in kindness. Yisad Adonai panav elecha yisam lecha shalom. May God grant you a life of good health, joy, and peace. It's a special blessing as we go into the new year. Thank you. Next slide, please. So this blessing reminds us that we are all part of families, and that our families are a part of bigger families, and that we are all part of the family of God. When we are with our families, we sometimes act one way, and at other times we act in different ways, right? So sometimes maybe you act one way at school and another way at home, one way when your friends are over, one way when your grandma and grandpa are over, and that's all normal, right? But even when we act differently at different times, we're still the same person because we all have many, many sides to us. The next slide, please. So God's a lot like that. Sometimes God may feel very close to us. Sometimes God feels far away. Sometimes we may think of God like a parent, and sometimes we may think of God as a very good friend. Sometimes we may think of God as part of nature or the ocean or a beautiful mountain. So would someone share, a couple people perhaps, how do you think of God, and when or where do you feel close to God? Is it in nature? Is it perhaps when you see a beautiful painting, or when you hear some amazing music, or maybe when you see the eyes of your child? But where or when is it that you feel connected to God?
By the ocean.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah. We don't have an ocean in Columbus, but we have some beautiful woods. And sometimes when the sun is coming through a certain way early in the morning, it's just stunningly beautiful. There's like 1,000 different kinds of greens that you can see, not just one green. Great. Okay. Next slide, please. So, tshuva on Yom Kippur, right? Turning, restoring life. Everyone is made in the image of God, and everyone is basically good. However, everyone does both good and bad things, and everyone can always do better next time. We can feel very happy about the many, many good things we did last year. We also know we did some hurtful things that hurt ourselves and other people. The next slide. So we're going to do hopefully a very interactive prayer here, and it's going to name things that we've done really wonderful last year and things that we could do better going forward. But please help us learn to quickly say we are sorry when we hurt someone. We're also ready to quickly forgive those who have hurt us. Those are not easy things to do. And we hope and pray that those whom we have hurt will quickly forgive us when we say with a full heart that we are really sorry. Next slide, please. So I'm going to read you a story about the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara. So if you look at this picture, it has an apple and a donut. So the Yetzer Tov is often often translated as our good inclination or our good side. And the Yetzer Hara it's not a really good translation, but it's often translated as the bad side. But it's not really about good and bad. It's about keeping these forces in balance with each other. So if the apple represents something that is nutritious and healthy, might be seen as the Yetzer Tov, and the donut is seen as something potentially not good for us, it could be seen as the Yetzer Hara. But could you imagine a life with no sweets, a life with only apples? So it's about knowing when to use your Yetzer Tov and when to use the Yetzer Hara. So I'm going to read you a story here. It comes from a book. It's Yom Kippur Children's Stories. And it says, we cannot get rid of our Yetzer Hara. We can't get rid of the bad side, the evil side, or the donut, whatever translation that you like. It will always be with us. And it's good to know it can even help us sometimes, but only if our Yetzer Tov, only if our good inclination is in control. Each of us has to decide whom to put in charge of our life, the Yetzer Tov or the Yetzer Hara. I'm going to read you a story from the Talmud. Let's see. Okay, I wrote down the wrong page. Here we go. So the following is a story from the Talmud about the Yetzer Hara. One day, long ago, the rabbis caught the granddaddy Yetzer Hara, and they locked him up for 3 days. And they thought everything would be wonderful without the evil urge around. There'd be no fights, no stealing, no lying. And they were right. But there were also no houses built, no risks taken, no chickens raised, nothing got done. The rabbis realized that we need the Yetzer Hara. It gives us the drive to succeed and build and improve the world. When we get upset and we want to make something better, that's a part of our Yetzer Hara that our Yetzer Tov, the good side, is then going to use to make the world better. If we let the Yetzer Hara have complete control, it will go too far. That's why our Yetzer Tov, our good urge, has to be stronger than the Yetzer Hara. So the rabbis, sighing, set the Yetzer Hara back into the world together with the Yetzer Tov. And today they roam around the world together to this very day. And there was a question then. A little boy asked the rabbi, well, how do we know which inclination, the Yetzer Tov or the Yetzer Hara, is going to be better? And the rabbi said, it's the one that you pay attention to. It's the one that you feed. It's the one that you work on. That's the one that will be in control. So go to the next slide, please. So sometimes we can find deep meanings hidden in the names of our prayers. Today, let us think about the word tshuva, or turning. As we read the prayer together, think back over the last year to times your Yetzer Tov, right, your good inclination was in control, and those times that all of us, adults as well, that we let our Yetzer Hara be in control. The next slide. So, tshuva. The power of tshuva is the greatest innovation since the creation of the world. So do you see the T there? So T, the times we told the truth, but we also tattled. And then E, the second letter of tshuva. We ran errands to help others, but we also embarrassed others sometimes. So when we ran errands to help other people, or we raked their leaves, or we shoveled their driveways, was that the Yetzer Tov in control or the Yetzer Hara? Who can help me out? Yes, Eden.
Excuse you?
Shoshana. It's Shoshana.
Oh, I'm sorry, Shoshana. I'm sorry.
What was the question again?
When we ran errands, so if you ran errands for someone last year, or maybe you helped shovel the driveway or pick up leaves, was that your Yetzer Tov, your good inclination, or your Yetzer Hara, your bad inclination?
I actually helped someone.
Uh-huh.
I actually helped someone at Carol's Inc., my summer program I go to.
Wonderful. So was that your good inclination that you used to help somebody?
Good.
Yeah, excellent. But if we embarrass somebody, right, which my guess is all of us last year had done that, then that was
I embarrass myself a lot.
Yeah, that can happen, right? Yeah, excellent. Thank you for sharing. Let's do the S. So TES, we shared with others, but we also spoke mean words sometimes. The H, the fourth letter of tshuva, we helped our friends and families, but we also hurt people sometimes. The next slide has the last four letters of tshuva. U, we offered understanding to others, but we were also unkind sometimes. And V, we volunteered often, but we were also very rude sometimes. A, we acted in kind and helpful ways, but we also acted in obnoxious ways sometimes. And H, we helped and hugged, but we also hit sometimes, metaphorically, symbolically, with unkind words. Next slide, please. So we've talked about tefillah, we've talked about tshuva, thinking back over the last year, and the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer Tov, and tzedakah is sharing and helping. Giving tzedakah means sharing what you have with someone who needs it. We can share our food, our clothes, our toys, and our money. We can share our time, just being with somebody who maybe is lonely. We can also share our time and our friendship. We can love our parents and our family. We can be friendly to others. We can help and comfort others even when they are sad or sick. And we can study the Torah because the Torah teaches us how to do all these things. So the rabbis say that the study of Torah, if you study the Torah, it will lead to all of these good acts that will make the world a better place. The next slide, please. So today is Yom Kippur, the day of at-one-ment, the day we strive to become one with ourselves and all of mankind. And how do we do that? Well, ki mitzion tetzei Torah udevar Adonai beYerushalayim. The Torah, the word of God will come from Zion, from Jerusalem, God's word. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Listen, Israel, Adonai is our God, Adonai alone. The Torah is sweet as honey on our tongue. Let us soak it up. Let it all sink in, the sweet words of Torah. So the next slide, the blessings before the reading of the Torah. So say it with me. Baruch et Adonai hamvarach. And we see the second line twice, right? Baruch Adonai hamavrach leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai hamavrach leolam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim. V'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai Elohein haTorah. This blessing is really, really beautiful because it first says Natan, who gave us the Torah. And then the last line says Notain, who's giving us the Torah right now. So it's this beautiful mystical idea that the Torah was given to Moses thousands of years ago. It's also being given anew right now to us today. So each of us can learn and bring what we know from our own life and our own experiences to the Torah and come up with new and wonderful meanings and interpretations. So the next slide is the reading of the Torah on Yom Kippur. So God said to Moses, on the 10th day of the 7th month of the year, you will have a day, oh, excuse me for the typo, of at-one-ment, of atonement. And on this day, you will not eat, you will not work, but you will just think about the last year and the times you have missed the mark and how you can do better this year. So as we're going to read another story here in a second about Jonah and the whale, the idea of Yom Kippur is not to be like sad all day. It's to think, wow, I did a lot of really wonderful things last year, but I can continue to be better, to make myself better, to be kinder and more loving to my family and friends, and to make the world a better place. That's the message of Yom Kippur. And on the second of the slide here, there are some things that are so important. I think we mentioned this last week, that there's a blessing you say before it and after it. One of them is being thankful for food, right? So there's a blessing before you eat, like the motzi, and then there's a blessing after you eat, because it's a wonderful gift, to be able to have food to eat. So this is a blessing after the reading of the Torah. Please say it with me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu torat emet v'chaim olam atah b'tochenu Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. So again, it's notein. It's giving us the Torah right now, not just in the past. The next slide, please. So I want to read you a story about, it's very traditional on Yom Kippur afternoon to read and study the book of Jonah. Do you know the story of Jonah? Do you know the story? Can you raise your hand or? Okay, yeah. So I'm going to read you the story. Let me see. My page number here. It's from the same book that I read the other story from. Stories for Yom Kippur. But before I read, I'm going to ask you a question. So have you ever been happy when someone got in trouble, or been happy when something didn't, or been happy when something didn't work out for someone? I think all of us have to struggle with this. And this is what the story of Jonah is about. So I'm going to read you the story. And God wanted to do something good for the people of Nineveh, but Jonah didn't want God to do something good for people of Nineveh. And I think that's the deep meaning of the story. So as I read the story to you, listen, okay? And see if you can figure this out. Once God spoke to Jonah and said, Jonah, go to the city of Nineveh and tell the people that they're doing bad things. Tell them that God said that they have to behave better. But Jonah didn't want to go, and he didn't want to talk to them anymore. He didn't like the people of Nineveh, and he didn't want them to be able to listen to God. So Jonah went down to the harbor and got on a ship going the other way to the city of Tarshish so he could hide from God. But God found him on the ship, and God brought a big rainstorm on the sea. And the storm was so strong that the ship began to break apart. And Jonah knew that God had brought the storm because he had tried to hide from God. He told the sailors on board to throw him into the sea. As soon as they did, the storm stopped. Look at the picture. Do you see the picture? They're throwing. That would be pretty scary, I think, to get thrown over the boat. When Jonah floated in the water, God caused a huge fish to follow him up. Jonah lived in the belly of the fish for 3 days and 3 nights. He had a lot of time to think and to pray, right? To do tefillah and tshuva. God heard Jonah's thoughts and caused the fish to let Jonah go. Once again, God told Jonah to go to Nineveh and warn the people. This time, Jonah went and the people listened. They did tshuva, right? They turned around. They repented. They started going in a new direction. They realized the things they were doing that were not helpful, and they began to do helpful things. They apologized to others they had hurt, and they began to behave better. But this made Jonah angry. He thought if the people did something wrong, they ought to be punished. But this is not what God wanted to do. God wanted the people to do tshuva, to make up for their mistakes. He doesn't want to punish anybody. He would rather have us do tshuva so that we can make ourselves and the world a better place. I think that's a great story, especially on Yom Kippur. And that's why it's often read and studied on Yom Kippur afternoon. So Jonah and the big fish. So maybe you want to read about it online or get the book and you can read more about the story. It's a really wonderful story. The next slide, please. So Aleinu. So most services toward the end, we sing Aleinu. But if you look at the word in Hebrew, Aleinu, it says it's upon us, but it means it's our duty. So everyone wants the world to be a better place. Everyone wants the world to be kinder and to be people to be more helpful to each other. And when we say, Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liotzer breshit, and then we end with, V'anachnu korim u'mishtachavim u'modim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim hakadosh baruch hu. What we're really saying, we're saying, God, we know it's our duty to do these things. Please help us. It's not just my neighbor's duty. It's not just your duty, God. It's not just my parents' duty or my sister or brother's duty to be nice. It's my duty as well. Let us praise God who created this world and created us. Together we will work for the day when the whole world is one, right? At one mint. That's what Yom Kippur is. And at peace. It's a beautiful, beautiful prayer that we end most services with. The next slide, please. So let's do a responsive reading. So the part in bold, say with me. Today we promise to do better. We promise to pray. We promise to make up for our mistakes. We promise to share. May next year be a sweet one for everyone. Shana Tova. The next slide. So we're going to end with a Tekiah Gedolah, with a long blast of the shofar. Do you have your shofars handy or any noisemaker? Get one if you do. So,
You're coming up.
I'll wait for you to get your shofar. I got mine. Or anything that makes noise. You can make your own shofar. Right? Okay, like, all right. So, I need your help because
On mute.
yeah, so I'm gonna need your help because I'm still very much learning how to play the shofar. Are you ready? Tekiah Gedolah. Excellent. So, Gamar Chatima Tova. Gamar means may you be sealed for a good and sweet year. So everyone, please say Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
All right. Have a wonderful afternoon. Please show love to your family. Enjoy the afternoon and enjoy being together. Thank you so much. I think Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Bye.
Shana Tova, thank you.